Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Welcome to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. I, Dr. Reshma Sable, working as an assistant professor with Indu Kaka Ipkovala Institute of Management, Charusat University, Changa. I'm going to take the second session for the unit Human Resource Planning. We are going to see the concepts of academic theory, critical academic theory, and the definition of business practices, along with few examples. At the same time, we are going to see the career avenues for HR if somebody is interested in HR as a profession. So let's start with the session. The learning objectives as stated are to understand the academic theory, critical academic theory, and the definition of business practices along with some example and avenues in careers of HR. So by the end of the session, you are definitely going to be confident on these 4 topics. Now let's start. Now, if I talk about academic theory, the focus of academic theory is on humans which are not machines. Now here, if we want to understand the realization that humans are not considered as commodities, humans are not considered as the machines, and that's why humans are not machines, and that's why we need the interdisciplinary examination of people in the workplace. This is the focus of academic theory. Now let's try to understand this focus in the context of the development of the academic theory. If we want to understand academic theory, there are different fields which have contributed successfully in developing this theory. The different fields varies from psychology, industrial engineering, industrial psychology, organizational psychology, industrial relations, sociology, postmodernism, and post-structuralism. So here let's try to understand that every field, right from psychology to post-structuralism, every field has its unique identification, and academic theory is derived from the unique perspectives of every field. You can see the presence of the psychology field, not only the pure psychology, but also the industrial and organizational psychology is taken into consideration. So psychology is a very important aspect to be considered when we are dealing with human beings, and that's why contribution from these 3 areas are important. At the same time, you can see the presence of industrial engineering, which talks about the different perspectives of humans and their involvement in the industries. So here we are going to focus on industrial relations as well, because it's going to be the relations between employee and employees, employee and employer, employer and employers, and the organizations and organizations. So industrial relations is also a very important contributing field. At the same time, you can see the presence of the field sociology, because humans are social animals. You cannot isolate them in the organizational context. So we need to understand the process of socialization, and that's why academic theory was developed by taking into the consideration what sociology has contributed. We can see the presence of postmodernism and post-structuralism. Now these 2 fields are related to the psychology. These 2 fields are related to the intellectual movement that has happened in the history and the late 20th century, and that's why they are major contributions. They are the major contributors to the academic theory. Now again, coming back to the focus, when we are having the different perspectives from different fields in academic theory, obviously we are going to recognize the existence of individuals in the organization. And that's why the focus has changed from considering humans as machines to humans as individuals, humans as social beings. And in order to understand this focus in better manner, there's a need to identify the interdisciplinary examination of people in the workplace. Due to the diversity that is available in the background of every employee, we need to have the diverse approach for evaluation as well. So that is what academic theory has proposed. Now if we see into how this theory has developed by understanding the 4 rules of HRM, given in the business context by Dave Ulrich. Dave Ulrich has identified 4 fields of HRM functions which are described or which are used to describe the role of HRM in business. Now, this stands true in every business, whether it is small, medium, or large. These 4 functions are truly standing there. Now, the first is HR as a strategic business partner. Second talks about HR as a change agent. Then HR's role in administrator, and then HR as an employee champion. So if you talk about the HR's role in strategic business partner, now when you say strategies, the immediate recollection is yes, strategies are drafted in order to achieve the goal, and the goals are there in order to achieve the vision and mission of the organization. So when you say strategic business partner, here we are referring to HR as those individuals who are contributing in strategic decision making. Now, strategic decisions are those decisions which are going to bring in a very visible change in the existence of the organization in the coming future. And that's why strategic decisions are very important. And there you are referring to HR as a strategic business partner. At the same time, we are expecting HR to act in a role of a change agent. Now, when we are going to act in a role of a change agent, obviously, this world is dynamic. We know that every day there is a new challenge, there is a new change that has been observed. Something that is true today can be obsolete tomorrow. And that's why it is important that HR plays a very important role of a change agent. Now, it's not only to facilitate the change, it's also to support the employees to get along with the dynamic requirements of the world. Employees may not be in position, or they may not have the intellectual capacities to understand why the change is introduced or why the change has happened. But then it is the responsibility of the HR manager to help them in the change process, to facilitate the change, to support them, to help them get adjusted to the new world. At the same time, we cannot detach HR from administration, because it's all about getting the work done. Now, when you are getting the work done, you are supposed to allocate the resources, procure the resources, make decisions, delegate the responsibilities, held somebody else accountable and responsible for the work to be done. So there are many administrative activities which are related to this. And at the same time, documenting, record keeping the proofs of every record is required by HR, because we may need those proofs in the coming future for any reference. At the same time, we are having a very important role of HR as an employee champion. HR is seen as a leader of the employees. The way the HR behaves is definitely going to be the same way that the employees may behave. Why? Because most of the employees are followers. And if we have an ideal HR in the place, definitely he is going to be termed as an employee champion. Now, Aldrich has given these rules of HRM which are applicable in all businesses. But then if you go to understand different businesses in today's market as well, you will see that there are certain limitations of these HR functions. The first and foremost limitation is many of the HR functions are limited to the roles of administration and employee champion. So that is the sad part of the reality, which tells us that even though there is a lot of contribution that you can expect in the area of the position of strategic business partner and change agent, still the HR managers in most of the organizations are limited to carrying out the administrative activities and acting in a role of an employee champion, though these two are not at all the bad roles. But then there is again a hidden potential in HR manager also, wherein which they can very effectively contribute in decision making. They can very effectively facilitate the change. Why? Because they know the processes in and out, because they are working very closely with the organization, because they are acting as a mediator between top management and the lower level management. So HR can definitely be in a role of a strategic business partner as well. So we need to understand that HR function should not be limited to administration and employee champion. It should go beyond that. Now the second limitation is seen that HR is seen more as a reactive partner than a strategically proactive partner for top management. Now, even though we give the presence for the employees' participation in management or workers' participation in management, we allow them to attend the meeting, we allow them to contribute in decision making, but then there is a need for urgent reflection or whether HR is acting reactively or proactively when it comes to strategic decision making. Now we need people who are proactive partners. Proactive means we are not having the firefighting approach, we are having the well prepared and planned approach in place. And that's why we need not ignore this area. We need HR to contribute strategically and in a proactive manner. The third limitation of HR function is there's a difficulty in proving the value added by HR activities and processes to the company. Now, that is again something of a big concern for many of the organizations. Though we say that it is individuals who are making the differences in the workplace, it is individuals who are leading the organizations in the future, it is individuals who are responsible for the success of the organization, still it is very difficult to identify whether there is any value that is added. And if it is added, it is difficult to prove that the values are added by the HR activities and the processes of the company. Now, because of this particular need to determine the value added by HR, in modern times, the focus is on developing models. We need to develop models that can measure whether HR adds value or not. Okay, we need not say it that HR is adding value orally. It's not a linguistic debate. Okay, and that's why we need to have some existing very proven and established models in place that can help us to understand whether the HR adds the value and whether the added value is measured or not. So that is what academic theory aims at. So if you want to remember academic theory, kindly remember that academic theory is established to recognize humans as individuals, as human beings, as social animals, and academic theory is derived from many psychological, sociological, and philosophical theories which were already into existence. At the same time, Dave Ulrich has given 4 important functions of HR in business context which are applicable for small, medium as well as large size organizations, like HR as a strategic business partner, HR as a change agent, HR as an administrator, and HR as an employee champion. Now let's try to understand the next concept of critical academic theory. Now, when you talk about critical academic theory, this theory was given by Max Horkheimer in 1937. Now, when Max introduced this theory in 1937, he was belonging to Frankfurt School of Sociology, and in one of the essays titled as Traditional and Critical Theory, he mentioned about critical academic theory. So that was the origin of critical academic theory. Now, if you want to understand how this theory has derived, we just need to take help of certain work that is already being done in those days. The very first, this diagram is distinguishing that particular work, which is the contribution to critical theory. So the very first theory that Max has taken reference to over here is Marx's theory. Now, if I talk about Marx's theory is given by Karl Marx. Now, when I talk about Karl Marx, this Marx's theory is derived with the background of sociology, political sciences, and economics. Now, Karl Marx has identified that there will be struggle, or there was a struggle between capitalists and the working class. Now, when there was a struggle between capitalist and working class, Karl Marx identified that out of this struggle, the conflict was supposed to arise. Now, when the arised conflict was existing, Karl Marx predicted that yes, the presence of the conflict is going to bring in the revolution. So that is what he has very distinctively discussed in Marx's theory. And Marx has taken help of Marx's theory along with two more approaches. The second approach that Marx has taken into consideration is model of science. Now, according to model of science, scientific knowledge is the only kind of factual knowledge. Scientific knowledge is the only kind of factual knowledge that is respected, that is existing, which leads to logical positivism. So, Marx has taken into consideration the logical positivism that arises from the model of science. And at the same time, Marx, along with his co workers, has understood or has attempted to analyze the concept of covert positivism and authoritarianism. So, when Marx studied all these three distinct concepts and analyzed them together, that is Marx's theory, logical positivism derived from model of science, and covert positivism and administrativism, he developed critical theory. And this particular critical academic theory is considered as a social theory which is oriented towards critiquing and changing the society as a whole. So, even though the word critical is used over here, it's not about criticism only. Here, it is a critical analysis of the problems that are existing in society and then identifying the ways in which we can bring in the change in the entire society. So, critical theory is a social theory oriented towards critiquing and changing the society as a whole. Now, this theory is totally different than the traditional theory, wherein which the traditional theory was oriented only to understand and explain the society. That was the limitation of traditional theory. Traditional theory just explains and helps people to understand the construction of society, the structure of society. But traditional theory never discussed about the change that was introduced or that was required to be introduced. Whereas critical theory is the theory that is oriented towards critiquing and changing society by understanding the needs of the society. So, with this in mind, let us understand the core concepts of critical academic theory. The first core concept that is given by critical academic theory is this theory should be aimed at acting at the totality of the society in its historical perspective. That is how it came to be configured at a specific point in time. We need to understand this. That means that we need to understand that critical academic theory aims at bringing the change in the society as a whole. It considers the structure, the entire structure of the society for the change perspective. The second core concept of critical academic theory is theory should act in a way to improve the understanding of society by integrating all major units of social sciences, that is geography, economics, society, history, political science, sociology. And why do we need to do this? Because we need to strengthen the premise of critical academic theory. So this second core concept emphasizes that if you really want to bring in a change in the society, this is possible only when you understand the social science and the different fields that are associated with social science, like understanding the geographical construction, understanding the role of economies, understanding how the sociology and the society is constructed, understanding the history of that particular society, and understanding the political background and nature. So once we can understand this, yes, there is a possibility that we can definitely introduce some change in the society and the totality of the society is achieved. So these are the two core concepts of critical academic theory. Now moving further, this critical academic theory also has criticism. Criticism of critical academic theory is HRM is an attempt to move away from the modernist traditions of personnel, that is man as an individual. Now you can see this is debated by many HR scholars over the years, and now also this is questionable, debatable. So that is the biggest criticism of critical academic theory. Over here, CAT means critical academic theory. Now, what critical academic theory includes? It includes the notion that because human beings are the subject, we should recognize that people are complex and that it is only through various discourses that we understand the world. Now, here the most important thing to know is human beings are given the recognition for their existence. And because we are recognizing human beings, we are also recognizing the complexity that exists among them. Because people belong to diverse background, diverse culture, ethnicity, caste, religion, gender, education, experience. Okay, so because of all this diversity that has been seen, human beings are almost complex in nature. So, according to critical academic theory, you need to undergo various discourses in order to understand the world. You cannot predict or you cannot expect it to happen in a quick moment of time. So, you need to give time to understand the complex nature of human being. That is what critical academic theory focuses on. Now, the next important thing is it questions. It questions whether human resource management is in the pursuit of attitudinal shaping. Now, when I talk about attitudinal shaping, it means we are giving a shape to the attitude. You are not definitely changing and bringing a very drastic change. Here we are talking about the proper shape that has been given to the way in which people are thinking. So, critical academic theory questions whether human resource management is in pursuit of attitudinal shaping, which was identified by Wilkinson in 1998. And particularly, attitudinal shaping, particularly when considering empowerment or pseudo empowerment as a critical perspective notes. What does it mean? It means that when you're empowering your employees, when you're giving them responsibilities, when you're asking them to be accountable for the work that has been given to them, is there any change or is there any proper direction that is given to their attitude or not? So, that is the question of critical academic theory. Now, an important note that has to be made over here is the move away from man as machine is more of a linguistic move away than the real efforts to recognize the human in human resource management. Now, you see how beautiful this statement is given. The move away from man as a machine is more of a linguistic in nature. It's in words, it's in language, it's in talk, it's on paper, it's in theory. And this is just there. Critical academic theory says that there is a need to have real efforts to recognize humans in human resource management. Okay, even though we are stating it very frequently that no, our humans are recognized as social beings, but then yes, whether this move from man as machines to man as a social human being is in existence in reality or not, that is again very important concern. So this is something that critical academic theory wants to highlight. Now, when I get into the acknowledgement that has been done by critical academic theory, it as a subject deals with people in the workplace, and it is a very complex one, as it is stated in earlier slide also, that because it's all about humans and humans are from diverse backgrounds, you will find many complexities in behavior, in thought processes, in attitude, in patterns of thinking, in the way they function, in the way they interact. It's almost of a complex nature. And that's why critical academic theory says that simplistic approach is not going to work over here. You need to be strategic, you need to be very clear, you need to be focused, you need to be very aimed in identifying the ways, the tricks, the strategies, so that you are going to deal with the complex nature of humans. So these are certain important aspects of critical academic theory. Now, after understanding critical academic theory and academic theory, we are now moving to understand the concept of best practice. We are going to go for the very first attempt of definition. to understand the concept of best practice. Now, when you see the concept of best practice, you can see that there are four words which are very important over here. One is methods, processes, procedures, and rules. These four words are very important when it comes to business practices. And business practices are obviously can be the best practices of the organization. So, method, processes, procedures, and rules which are employed or followed by a firm. And why do they follow all these things? They follow all these things in the pursuit of the firm's objectives. Now, every firm has some underlying objectives, underlying mission and vision for which they all are working. So, when I talk about the methods, methods are nothing but how to accomplish anything. We are trying to identify how we can accomplish anything. So, when we are getting the answers to how, definitely we can term it as the method. When I talk about the processes, processes are the series of actions or steps taken by organization to achieve what they aim for. So if you're having the objectives in mind, the methods will help you to understand how can you achieve those objectives. Processes will help you to understand the steps that you need to take in order to get closer to the objectives. Procedures are the official ways of getting the things done. So procedures will help you to understand how to do the things, and you are going to make it official, that is known to every employee of the organization through procedure. And definitely rules are the codes, conducts, practices which are on paper and communicated very clearly to the employees. So we need to understand that the definition of business practices, it is all about methods, processes, procedures, and rules which are employed by the firm in the pursuit of the firm's objectives. Now, moving further, we can see that there are different business practices which are quoted over here. So, like business management, time management, payroll management, wage and salary administration, these all are the parts and practices of business practice. Now, here these functions can be performed in HR department. The organization can take a decision to outsource this, or they can be performed by the managers as well. Now, here the organizations need to decide how are they going to continue these business practices. So, when we talk about these business practices, an example over here is of a real estate business. Now, business practices have drastically changed in real estate business, which talks about the focus on quality nowadays, which talks about promptness of the service that has been provided by the real estate business owners. Now, here there is a need for change because the aspirations of the customers are changing, because the disposable income is very high among customers, because they are also ready to spend out of their pockets. And at the same time, because of the presence of internet, they are having the exposure to the international trends. And that's why it's a challenge to the real estate business owners to give lifestyle opportunities to the average buyer as well, because they want to stand in the competition. And for doing this, they give the better facilities and better practices. At the same time, for them, the key business growth lie in the area of ability of the real business owners to understand the customer needs and constantly innovate and interact with customers. So here there is an urgent need to interact and be in touch with the customers and innovate before your counterparts innovate, before your competitor innovates. So that's the key for growth. And the key for success is offer the best possible service to your customers, offer the value added features and the benefits. The example is nowadays we see the complexes with all full-fledged facilities like gym, swimming pool. We also have theaters, we also have small shopping malls within the campuses, we also have playgrounds, we also have meditation centers. Why not? Because the requirement is high, people are ready to spend, and yes, we are supposed to change the business practices. So with this in mind, let's try and understand how you can have bright careers in HRM. The organizations in globalized era are in urgent need to address the issues of skilled and well-trained and highly motivated staff. There's a need for these people in the market. And organizations are ready to invest in developing these humans. Why? Because they see the hidden potential and the hidden success in the coming future. So there is a merit seen in the investment part. And that's why organizations are ready to invest. If you're ready to get into the career of HR, here are some of the avenues wherein which you can get into. First is corporate HRM. So here you can get into not only to identify and searching the best suitable job and qualified candidate, but also you can play in a role of a motivator, a human resource developer, training, and the trainer aspects also can be taken care of. And at the same time, you can get into maximizing the employee satisfaction and minimizing employee turnover. So that is a very challenging position. At the same time, there is a role of trainer and developmental manager that is required. It is a very specialized approach that is accepted and implied by most of the organizations, that is train the trainer path. When you talk about train the trainer, here HR managers are trained so that they can train their employees for the future growth. And this is again a very important career. The third most important career is recruitment consultant. Now, when you're acting in a role of a recruitment consultant, you're going to help the organizations to find the best employees. And at the same time, you're going to help the job seekers to find the best job. So basically, you're going to bring in the match between the job seekers and the organization. So you're going to bring them together. The key to achieve in this position is to meet the needs of the client and find the best fit for the organization and the job seekers. When you get into the HR consulting career, here you are in an advisory role to the organization in the areas of optimum utilization of human resources, realizing the competitive advantage, and finding solutions to the people issues. So that is basically an advisory role, very highly paid profession and very respectable job. At the same time, career counseling is very important. So in this role, you get into assessing people's interest, that is their personality, values, skills, and there can be an one-to-one discussion or a group discussion which you can have with the aspiring candidates to explore the opportunities, the avenues, and decision making. So basically, career placement activities will be related to career counseling. So these are some of the important careers that are associated with HR. So with these questions, you can check your progress of the unit, and at the same time, you can go into further reading by following the book of Harvard Business School and the book of Uday Parekh and T.V. Rausa. So let's sum up. Now in this particular unit, we have understood the concept of academic theory. At the same time, we have understood the concept of critical academic theory in detail. We have understood how these two concepts were developed, and at the same time, we have understood what are the best business practices which are prevailing in the market and how you can make the best use of these business practices. An example of real estate business we have also seen. And at the end, we have seen few careers wherein which people can venture into if they want to develop their profession. Thank you very much.
स्वाध्यायः परः